Did you know the average American spends over $4,000 a year on groceries? What if I told you there's a way to slash that bill using just a tiny patch of land and zero electricity? Yep, it's not some futuristic tech. It's the Amish secret to growing a full year's worth of food in less than 200 square feet. No power tools, no chemicals, and no need to wear suspenders either. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're tired of rising food prices, short on space, or just love clever old world life hacks, stick around. Today we're diving into one of the most fascinating, practical, and surprisingly simple ways to grow your own food all year round, straight from the playbook of the Amish. Now, when you think Amish, you might imagine sprawling farms and horse-drawn ploughs. But here's the real surprise. Their most powerful techniques work even better in small spaces. In fact, some families grow enough food to last the entire year in a garden smaller than a living room. I recently spent time with my Amish neighbour Jacob, a third-generation gardener, and what he showed me was nothing short of mind-blowing. Not only do they grow massive amounts of food in tiny spaces, but they also improve their soil, protect pollinators, and even fight climate change along the way. What I found out will shock you, like how banana peels, coffee grounds, and even horse manure play a critical role in their success, and how a single greenhouse smaller than a parking space can produce 4 harvests a year. In this video, I'm going to take you deep into the heart of Amish gardening secrets. From their legendary black gold compost to natural pest control that puts chemicals to shame, all the way to community-powered growing systems that make every square inch count. So let's get started with the foundation of Amish farming, the black gold of the backyard, their legendary soil-building techniques secret 1. Let's dive into the heart of Amish gardening, their legendary soil-building method they call black gold compost. You might think composting is just throwing banana peels and coffee grounds in a bin and hoping for the best. But the Amish treat it like alchemy, turning everyday kitchen scraps into rich, crumbly soil that grows massive amounts of food in a tiny space. Here's how it works. They start with a 3 by 3 foot area, usually in partial shade. The first layer is brown materials. Dry leaves, shredded paper, or straw, about 6 inches thick. This creates air pockets that help things break down properly. Then comes the green layer, about 3 inches of fresh grass clippings, veggie scraps, or young weeds. These are high in nitrogen and help speed up the process. Now here's the secret ingredient. A thin dusting of existing garden soil, just a sprinkle between layers. It adds natural microbes that kickstart decomposition. They repeat this pattern, browns, greens, a bit of soil, until the pile reaches about 4 feet tall. The magic ratio? Roughly 3 parts brown to 1 part green. Moisture matters. The pile should feel like a wrung-out sponge. Not too wet, not too dry. Too wet and it'll smell bad. Too dry and nothing will break down. Once a week, they give the pile a good turn with a pitchfork. This keeps oxygen flowing and helps everything rot evenly. Within 3 months, boom, you've got rich, dark compost that smells like chocolate cake. And trust me, this isn't just dirt, it's alive. Amish compost teems with billions of helpful microorganisms. 1 handful contains more living organisms than there are people on Earth. That's wild, right? But they don't stop there. They add crushed eggshells for calcium, coffee grounds for nitrogen, even wool scraps for slow-release nutrients. And yes, they love banana peels. Those little guys pack a punch of potassium. Some Amish gardeners joke that they're the only people who get excited about banana peels and coffee grounds. But hey, if it makes better tomatoes, we'll take it. This compost doesn't just feed plants, it improves water retention. Healthy Amish-style soil can hold up to 20,000 gallons of water per acre. enough to fill a small swimming pool. That means less watering, healthier roots, and even some climate benefits. Studies show Amish soil has up to 60% more organic matter than regular farmland. That extra matter holds carbon underground, helping fight climate change. And the best part? This system costs almost nothing. No fancy tools, no store-bought fertilizers. Just layers, time, and a little elbow grease. So once the soil's ready, it's time to protect it from pests. And you won't believe how the Amish do it without a single drop of chemical pesticide. Secret 2: pest control without chemicals. All right, so you've got your Amish-style soil ready, rich, dark, and teeming with life. Now it's time to protect it from unwanted visitors. You know, the bugs that think your garden is an all-you-can-eat buffet. Most of us reach for a spray bottle or a chemical pesticide when we see the first chewed leaf. But the Amish have been doing this the natural way for generations. And honestly, their methods are smarter than anything you'll find on a store shelf. Let's start with what they call plant power. This isn't about yoga in the garden. It's about using certain plants to naturally keep pests away. Marigolds, for example, are like the bouncers of the garden world. Their strong scent confuses pests like aphids and tomato hornworms, making it harder for them to find your veggies. Then there's garlic. The Amish plant garlic between rows of vegetables because its pungent smell acts like a natural bug spray. One farmer joked that his garlic keeps away both insects and nosy neighbours, though he's still working on a plant that can handle surprise visits from his mother-in-law. Basil near tomatoes? That's not just for cooking. It actually improves flavour while repelling those pesky hornworms. And if you really want to confuse the bugs, mix in some nasturtiums. They act as sacrifice plants, luring aphids away from your more valuable crops. But the real secret here is something called companion confusion. By planting a variety of pest-repelling plants together, the Amish create a kind of botanical maze. It's harder for bugs to zero in on their favourite targets when everything smells confusing. Now, if you're thinking this sounds too good to be true, here's where things get even more interesting. The Amish also do something most of us wouldn't expect. They go hands-on. Every morning, Amish gardeners go out for what they jokingly call pest patrol. No fancy sprayers, no protective gear, just gloves, a bucket of soapy water, and a sharp eye. They walk through the garden, inspecting leaves and stems, and literally pick off any bugs they find. Potato beetles, cabbage worms, you name it. Then they drop them into the bucket. It might sound gross, but one gardener told me it's oddly satisfying. Like doing bug squishing therapy. And get this, studies show that regular manual removal can reduce pest populations by up to 70%. Plus, you avoid the mess of chemicals, which can kill the good bugs too, like ladybugs and bees. Speaking of ladybugs, the Amish love them. They know these tiny warriors can eat up to 5,000 aphids in their lifetime. That's better than any pesticide. They also encourage other beneficial insects by creating what they call beneficial highways, strips of native flowers and herbs planted around the garden. These attract pollinators and pest-eating bugs like praying mantises and parasitic wasps. Even birds get invited to the party. Small brush piles near the garden give shelter to toads and garden snakes, nature's original pest control specialists. A single toad can eat up to 10,000 insects in a season. Seriously, if you see one in your garden, tip your hat. It's working harder than you are. And don't forget the water features. Even a shallow dish with a few stones can attract insect-eating birds and dragonflies. Bonus! They also help keep rodent populations in check by scaring them off with sudden bird activity. The results? Amish gardens typically suffer less than 10% crop loss to pests, often better than chemically treated gardens. And unlike chemical solutions, their methods improve year after year as the natural balance strengthens. So instead of reaching for that bottle of pesticide, maybe try turning your garden into a mini ecosystem. Let the marigolds guard the borders, let the ladybugs patrol the leaves, and every now and then roll up your sleeves and do a little pest patrol of your own. You might be surprised how well it works and how satisfying it feels. But we're not done yet. Next up is one of the most fascinating parts of Amish gardening, their greenhouse hack that lets them grow food 4 seasons a year. Secret 3. The Amish greenhouse hack, growing food. Year-round in just 12 by 20 feet. When most people think of the Amish, they imagine wide open fields and horse-drawn ploughs. But one of their most impressive growing tools is something much smaller. A modest greenhouse, no bigger than a parking space. These greenhouses are usually just 12 feet by 20 feet, yet they produce enough food to feed an entire family all year long. That's right, 4 full growing seasons, endless fresh vegetables, and 0 electricity needed. So how do they do it? It starts with passive solar heating. Unlike modern greenhouses that rely on electric heaters or expensive climate control systems, the Amish use simple, natural methods to trap and store heat. The north wall of the greenhouse is often made from dark-coloured stone or concrete blocks. These materials absorb sunlight during the day and slowly release it at night, keeping the greenhouse up to 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the outside temperature. But here's where it gets really clever. They also use fresh horse manure as a natural heat source. It's layered with straw along the north side of the greenhouse, and as it decomposes, it gives off warmth. 1 wheelbarrow of manure can heat about 100 square feet of greenhouse space for up to 2 months. That's not just smart farming. That's using what's already available in the most efficient way possible. Inside the greenhouse, every inch is used wisely. The layout follows a careful plan. Tall plants like tomatoes and climbing peas grow along the north wall where they won't block the sun from shorter crops. Medium-height plants like peppers and eggplants take the centre space. Low-growing leafy greens like lettuce and spinach soak up the southern light. They even hang baskets of strawberries and herbs from the ceiling, making full use of vertical space. Ventilation is handled without a single fan. Roll-up sides and roof vents open and close manually using simple pulley systems. This creates natural airflow, keeping plants cool in summer and preventing mould and disease. Water management is another area where the Amish shine. They collect rainwater from the roof into large barrels inside the greenhouse. These barrels do double duty, storing water for irrigation and acting as thermal mass to stabilise temperatures. During the day, the water warms up. At night, it releases that stored heat, helping keep the greenhouse from freezing. One particularly clever trick? Dark-painted water jugs placed between plants. These heat up during the day and give off warmth at night, creating little microclimates around cold-sensitive crops. It's like having tiny wood stoves scattered throughout your garden. No fire, no fumes, just free, natural heat. And don't forget the orientation of the greenhouse. Most are built facing south to catch the most sunlight. Some are even partially earth-sheltered on the north side, giving extra insulation against winter winds. This attention to detail and harmony with nature is what makes these greenhouses so effective. So while most of us might get 1 or 2 harvests a year from our gardens, an Amish greenhouse can produce up to 4 full cycles, meaning fresh tomatoes, cucumbers and greens even when there's snow on the ground. It's not about fancy tech or expensive tools. It's about working with what you have, planning smart, and making every drop of water and ray of sunshine count. And if you're thinking this sounds too good to be true, just wait until you hear what they grow inside these greenhouses and how they make the most of every plant. Secret 4. The Amish triple duty strategy. If you've ever stared at your garden plot wondering how to grow enough food to make it worth the effort, the Amish have a surprisingly simple answer. plant crops that do more than one job. They call it the triple duty strategy, choosing plants that not only feed the family but also enrich the soil, support livestock, or provide future compost. It's like getting 3 benefits for the price of 1 planting. Let's start with root vegetables, the unsung heroes of the Amish garden. Potatoes, carrots and beets aren't just space efficient. They're powerhouse crops that deliver on multiple fronts. The roots themselves are packed with nutrition and store beautifully through winter without needing electricity or fancy equipment. A single 4 by 4 foot bed of carrots can yield up to 25 pounds of food, enough to keep a family in fresh carrots for months. But here's where it gets even better. The leafy tops of these plants can be fed to chickens or goats, or added to the compost pile to fuel next season's garden. And since root crops don't take up much vertical space, they fit perfectly between taller plants like corn or tomatoes. Next up, climbing beans, especially pole varieties like Kentucky Wonder and Blue Lake. These aren't just high yield, they're nitrogen-fixing superstars. A single pole bean plant can produce up to 3 times more beans per square foot than bush beans. But beyond that, their roots add nitrogen back into the soil, feeding future crops naturally. Amish gardeners often plant them in what they call living towers. One wooden pole supports 6 to 8 bean plants, creating a compact, productive unit. Not only does this save space, but it also creates shade for heat-sensitive crops planted below. Then there's the king of cut-and-come-again greens, kale, Swiss chard and collards. These leafy powerhouses are like gift cards from the garden. You keep using them and they keep giving. Harvest the outer leaves and new ones grow in their place. Some Amish families stagger their planting so they always have fresh greens available. And during hot summer months, they'll plant these greens in partial shade to prevent them from bolting and turning bitter. These leafy crops are also great at attracting beneficial insects when allowed to flower, making them workhorses for both the table and the ecosystem. Now, let's talk about dwarf fruit trees. Yes, you read that right. You don't need an orchard to grow your own apples or pears. An 8-foot dwarf apple tree can produce up to 50 pounds of fruit annually, all in a space no wider than 2 feet. Amish gardeners often choose self-pollinating varieties like North Pole or Coleman apples, which thrive even in isolation. And because they're small, they're easier to protect from pests and birds. A simple netting is usually all it takes. Plus, many of these trees double as ornamental features, blending beauty and function seamlessly. Herbs also earn their space in the Amish garden, not just for flavour, but for their multiple roles as pest deterrents, medicinal aids, and culinary staples. Thyme, oregano, and sage are perennial favourites because they come back year after year without replanting. One Amish gardener told me, "Plant herbs once, harvest for years." They're often tucked into corners, along pathways, or near vegetable beds where their strong scents help confuse pests. And because they require minimal space and care, they're perfect for filling gaps in the garden. One particularly clever Amish trick: allowing certain plants to volunteer, meaning they self-seed and return on their own. Cherry tomatoes, dill, and some lettuce varieties are allowed to go to seed in specific areas, providing free plants for the next growing season. One farmer joked that volunteers are the only workers you never have to pay, and they show up right on time. When it comes to storage potential, the Amish carefully select varieties that last. Long-keeping onions like Patterson and COA are preferred over sweet varieties that spoil quickly. Winter squashes like butternut and Hubbard can be stored for months in cool, dry conditions, offering vital nutrients long after the growing season ends. For summer eating, they focus on high-yielding, continuous producers rather than one-time harvests. Instead of bush beans that give all their crop at once, they prefer pole beans that produce steadily. Instead of head lettuce, They grow loose-leaf varieties that can be harvested gradually. As one Amish farmer put it, choose your crops like you choose your friends. Look for those that give more than they take. This philosophy extends beyond just yield. It's about selecting plants that contribute to the overall health of the garden through companion planting relationships, natural pest control, and soil improvement. So whether you're working with a balcony, a raised bed, or a full backyard, the Amish approach shows that smart crop selection can turn even the smallest space into a food factory. And if you think we're done with their genius gardening hacks, think again. Because next, we're diving into how they use every inch of space, vertically, horizontally, and even underground, to maximize production like never before. Secret 5. Space-saving techniques. You might think that growing a year's worth of food in just 12 by 20 feet is impossible, unless you're working with magic soil or some kind of miracle seeds. But here's the real secret behind Amish gardening success. They've mastered the art of using every inch of space, vertically, horizontally, and even underground. They don't just grow plants, they grow layers, like a garden lasagna, stacked from the sky to the soil. Let's start with vertical gardening, where the Amish take full advantage of the third dimension. Most of us plant in flat rows, but the Amish see empty air as wasted space. That's why they build what they call living walls, structures made from cattle panels, wooden trellises, and even old fence wire, all designed to hold climbing plants. These aren't just for beans and peas. The Amish have figured out how to train cucumbers, squash, and even melons to grow up instead of sprawl. One clever trick? They use mesh slings to support heavy fruits like melons so they don't snap off the vine mid-climb. And it doesn't stop there. They create multi-level gardens, stacking crops by height and light needs. Picture this: morning glories or grapevines shading the top layer, climbing beans in the middle, and shade-loving greens like lettuce underneath. It's like a 3-tiered buffet. One structure, triple the harvest. But vertical isn't the only direction they go. They also go deep, planting root vegetables between above-ground crops, radishes under lettuce, carrots under peas, potatoes beneath corn, each taking advantage of different soil layers without competing. It's not just about fitting more plants in, it's about making them work together. Now let's talk raised beds, a staple in every Amish garden. These beds are usually 4 feet wide, just narrow enough to reach the centre from either side without stepping on the soil, which can compact it and hurt root growth. Length varies based on space, but they always keep them long and lean, maximising planting area while minimising pathways. Inside these beds, they practice what they call intensive spacing. That means planting crops closer together than most modern gardens, but with a twist. Instead of leaving extra room for weeds and wasted soil, they pack plants just tight enough to shade the ground and reduce evaporation. For example, where a typical guide might say to plant cabbage 24 inches apart, the Amish will plant them 16 inches apart, harvesting them slightly smaller, but getting more total heads per bed. One Amish gardener joked that his plants are like teenagers at a school dance, close enough to touch shoulders, but not so close they can't breathe. And then there's container gardening, which the Amish have perfected using whatever materials they have on hand. Old water troughs, wooden barrels, even repurposed wheelbarrows become mini gardens bursting with life. They often combine beauty and function in their containers. A dwarf apple tree surrounded by herbs, with strawberries trailing over the edges. This is what they call edible landscaping, where every pot pulls double duty, feeding the family and looking good doing it. Their raised beds often come with built-in trellising systems too. A bent cattle panel between two beds becomes both a walking archway and a growing space for beans or cucumbers. One such tunnel can produce up to 20 pounds of vegetables per linear foot. That's serious yield in a small footprint. But perhaps the most fascinating part of Amish space-saving techniques is how they repurpose everything. No scrap goes to waste. An old window screen becomes a seed-saving sieve. Broken pots turn into garden markers. Even leftover plant material gets used, either as mulch, compost, or feed for livestock. The Amish believe that empty space is wasted potential, and they've built a gardening system around that philosophy. So whether you've got a balcony, a backyard, or just a sunny windowsill, you can borrow from their playbook. Start thinking in layers. Use vertical space. Pack your plants smartly. And don't forget to look down, because sometimes the best growing space is right under your feet. Still amazed? Because we're not done yet. Next, we're diving into how the Amish make gardening easier through community collaboration, and how you can do the same, even if you live in an apartment building. Secret 6. The Amish secret to growing more by working together. When you think of gardening, you probably picture someone working solo. Gloves on, shovel in hand, maybe a radio playing softly in the background. But for the Amish, gardening isn't a solo act. It's a group performance, a community effort that multiplies results and makes growing food easier, faster, and more fun. You see, while most of us struggle to keep up with our own gardens, the Amish have built an entire system around shared knowledge, tools, and labour. And it's not just about convenience, it's about resilience, efficiency, and creating a network of support that benefits everyone involved. Let's start with seed saving, something most gardeners do on a small scale. But the Amish take it to the next level. Instead of every family trying to grow and save seeds from every vegetable under the sun, they specialise. One family might focus on tomatoes, another on beans, and another on squash. This way, each person becomes an expert in their assigned crop, resulting in stronger, more adapted varieties over time. And when those seeds are saved, they're often shared or traded among neighbours. That means, instead of relying on seed catalogues or expensive heirloom packets, families get access to high-quality, locally adapted seeds, all through cooperation. Then there's tool sharing, which might be one of the smartest things the Amish do. Think about how many tools we buy, use once, and then forget about in a shed. Now imagine if your neighbour had exactly what you needed, and vice versa. Amish communities operate tool libraries where members can borrow everything from broadforks to dibbers without having to buy their own. These aren't just storage sheds. They're knowledge hubs where people learn how to maintain and improve tools together. One Amish gardener told me, "A good tool should outlive its owner. And because they share them, they also share the responsibility of keeping them sharp, oiled, and in top shape." Now let's talk about work frolics. The Amish version of a barn raising, but for gardening. If you've never heard of this before, here's how it works. Families take turns hosting work days where the whole community shows up to help with big projects, building trellises, prepping beds for winter, or even setting up a new greenhouse. What would take one person a week to finish gets done in a single day. And it's all hands on deck. But these events are more than just hard work. They're social gatherings, potlucks with laughter, storytelling, and the kind of teamwork that builds strong relationships along with strong gardens. And here's the bonus. During these frolics, techniques are passed down naturally. Someone shows off a clever planting trick, another demonstrates a better way to prune fruit trees, and before you know it, everyone goes home smarter than when they came. Even harvesting is a team sport. Instead of each family trying to grow everything they need, Amish gardens often specialise. One household focuses on root vegetables, another on greens, and another on fruit trees. Then, when harvest time comes, they share the bounty. This system ensures that no one is overwhelmed by too much of one crop, and everyone ends up with a diverse supply of fresh food. It's like a CSA, community-supported agriculture, but made possible through trust, tradition, and neighbourly love. They even coordinate succession planting across gardens. When one family's lettuce is peaking, another's is just starting to mature, ensuring a steady flow of fresh greens throughout the season without waste. And when it comes to preservation, they turn canning and drying into group activities. Community canning days allow multiple families to process food together using shared equipment. It's efficient, economical, and, again, a chance to connect and enjoy each other's company. Pest and disease control also benefit from this collective approach. If one gardener spots a problem early, like aphids on tomatoes or blight on potatoes, word spreads quickly. That gives others time to take preventive action before the issue affects their own crops. They even keep community records, tracking weather patterns, pest outbreaks, and successful management strategies. Over time, this builds a powerful knowledge base that improves outcomes year after year. Even their plant breeding efforts are collaborative. Different families trial new varieties, document results, and share the best performers. This has led to the development of countless locally adapted strains, perfectly suited to their climate and soil. And perhaps most importantly, this system creates resilience. If one family faces hardship, illness, bad weather, or a failed crop, the community steps in. They ensure that no one goes without food or seeds for the next season. As one Amish farmer put it, "When we grow together, we all grow stronger." So while most of us might not live in tight-knit rural communities, the principles still apply. Whether it's splitting a seed order with a neighbour, sharing gardening tips online, or organising a local garden swap. Collaboration makes us all better growers. And now that you've seen how the Amish combine soil magic, natural pest control, greenhouse hacks, smart space use, and community power, you're ready for the final piece of the puzzle: how to make all these lessons work for you no matter where you live. If you've made it this far, you're probably thinking one thing: how is all of this even possible in such a small space? Well, the Amish have spent generations perfecting a system that doesn't rely on fancy gadgets, expensive tools, or sprawling land. Instead, they focus on working with nature, maximising every inch, and building strong, resilient communities. Let's recap what we've learned. The Amish soil secret, known as black gold, turns everyday kitchen scraps into nutrient-rich compost that can grow massive amounts of food. This isn't just dirt. It's a living ecosystem that holds water, fights climate change, and boosts yield without chemical fertilizers. Then there's their natural pest control strategy. No pesticides, no sprays, just clever plant pairings, hands-on bug patrol, and inviting beneficial insects to do the heavy lifting. It's gardening in harmony with nature, not against it. Their greenhouse hack is pure genius. A 12 by 20 foot structure, built with simple materials and smart design, can produce 4 harvests a year, even in the dead of winter. No electricity needed, just passive solar heating, thermal mass, and a little help from horse manure. And when it comes to choosing what to grow, the Amish stick to power crops, plants that give more than they take. From triple-duty root vegetables to climbing beans that fix nitrogen in the soil, every crop has a purpose beyond just feeding the family. But perhaps the most impressive part of the Amish system is how they use every inch of space, vertically, horizontally, and even underground. Living walls, multi-level gardens, intensive spacing, and intercropping turn tiny plots into thriving food factories. Of course, none of this would be possible without the right tools and techniques. But instead of relying on power tools and modern machinery, the Amish use time-tested hand tools, smart watering systems, and rainwater harvesting methods that make every drop count. And finally, at the heart of everything is community collaboration. Seed saving, tool sharing, work frolics, and harvest exchanges ensure that no one is left behind. And that everyone benefits from collective wisdom and shared effort. So what does all of this mean for you? It means that you don't need acres of land to grow your own food. You don't need an expensive greenhouse or fancy equipment. You don't even need a big budget. What you do need is a willingness to learn, a bit of patience, and the understanding that small spaces can grow big results, if you know how. Whether you've got a balcony, a backyard, or just a sunny windowsill, you can start applying these Amish-inspired techniques today. Start with a compost pile. Try some companion planting. Experiment with vertical growing. Get creative with what you have, because at the end of the day, the Amish secret isn't about tradition alone. It's about smart, sustainable living. It's about taking control of your food supply, reducing waste, and reconnecting with the land in a way that makes sense for your life. So before I wrap up, I want to hear from you. Have you tried any of these Amish gardening techniques before? Or maybe you're inspired to try one now. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss another video on frugal living, sustainable gardening, and timeless life hacks. Thanks for watching. And remember, sometimes the best solutions are the ones that have stood the test of time.